They need to continuously monitor their external environment and continuously update and revise their strategic plan. Well, AI is like, in some respects, AI is like any other technology. And in some other respects, it's nearly unique, extraordinarily different from other technologies. So let me briefly address each of those. I've been working with emerging technologies my entire career, ever since the 1980s, and to some respect, actually even a little bit before that, back to when I was first in graduate school. And one of the things that's important for businesses to understand is that it's not about the technology. Utilizing technology, or saying that you have a particular kind of technology, such as AI, in use at your organization, is not immediately going to provide you with strategic benefits, competitive advantages, and so forth. You have to think about how utilizing any technology, or even better, combinations of technologies, can enable you to do business in different and better ways than what you're doing before, what you've been doing before. So it's really, and I think the key point, and this is what's called digital transformation. A lot of people are under the misimpression that, well, digital transformation simply means we're getting rid of paper. But all too often, their interpretation of that simply means if we take all of our processes and systems that used to use paper, or in some cases are still using paper, and we make the entry of the data and the information digital on computers or smartphones or what have you, and then we store that information digitally and retrieve it that way, well, then we've accomplished digital transformation. And all you've really accomplished in that case is that you get some of the smaller marginal benefits of getting rid of paper, eliminating things like transcription errors, some of the delays of conveying information via paper, but you haven't really rethought the way that your organization works. I should comment too that when I refer to a business, I'm really talking about any type of organization, whether it's a private sector business in any industry, manufacturing, distribution, retail, energy, what have you, or whether it's a public sector organization like governmental agencies at the local or national level, or sort of quasi in between organizations like healthcare. And of course, depending on which country you're in, the government and healthcare may be more or less closely aligned with how they work with each other. But I will refer on occasion to organizations or enterprises, and much more frequently to businesses in terms of how they use these technologies. But I'm really referring to all of those businesses. So the opportunity for businesses to utilize AI is to help them think about how to leverage AI to dramatically improve their business processes. There are a lot of people out there that are very good at explaining the technical details of how these tools work. Often, though, they aren't looking at the big picture of how do you use these tools. Most of the usage of these generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude and so forth is tactical in nature. Now, that's not bad. By tactical, what I mean is it's being used by individuals such as yourself and myself to improve the quality and productivity of the work they're doing. That's a great thing. I mean, we'd all like to be more productive. The organizations we work with would all like us to be more productive. Sometimes these tools can be used by small teams working together. One of the challenges in many organizations is, as you look across the organization as a whole, they tend to use these tactical applications of AI, of generative AI? Well, tactically. In other words, they don't have a strategic plan for how are we going to adopt this across the organization as a whole and make sure that across all of our teams and people in the organization, we're maximizing the quality and productivity of their work by taking advantage of these generative AI tools. All too often, the approach that they take is here's a few guidelines and rules as to how to use it, like please don't take all the company's detailed financial reports and upload them into the generative AI tool because some of that information could end up turning up in somebody else's questions or research. But aside from those kinds of guidelines, all too often it's aside from that, you figure out whether you want to use it, how you want to use it, when you want to use it, and you're all on your own. So the smarter organizations are taking a strategic approach to how they use tactical AI, that is AI to maximize the quality and productivity of individuals' work and the work of small teams coordinating together. And they put plans in place to train people and coordinate their utilization of these tools and technologies across the enterprise as a whole. So that's important. If organizations are going to be using these tools, and pretty much everyone has already started using them and will need to use them to compete in much the same way that, 25 years ago, people were saying, well, do I really have to get up to speed on this internet thing? I mean, I'm not a professional programmer. I'm not an IT professional. So isn't that just something that they need to know about? Like, am I going to have to get one of these email address things? And, now we look back at that and laugh and just say, well, obviously, yes, of course we are, and the same thing holds true with generative AI. Everybody's going to be using these tools. So it's up to organizations to make sure that they are adopted in a well thought through strategic way. Every single organization out there, and you and I are talking here in December of 2024, no later than the end of the first half, and ideally by the end of the first quarter of 2025, needs to have a strategic plan in place for how are we going to adopt generative AI tools to maximize the productivity and quality of the work of people across our organization as a whole. But having said that, even for those organizations that are using generative AI as a tactical tool to improve the quality and productivity of individuals and small teams, that's not the same. And even if you're using it, tactical AI, implementing it in a strategic way, that's not the same as strategic AI. Strategic AI is when you are using AI to help you rethink the way that mission critical processes and systems work across the organization as a whole. So, for example, if you're a large manufacturer, you might be using an enterprise resource planning system or ERP system, such as SAP's software or Oracle software, and there are numerous other similar products out there. If you're managing cross-enterprise processes like customer service, supply chain management, procurement, operations, whether it's the manufacturing operations in a factory at a manufacturing company, or whether it's the hospital operations for operating rooms and treatment rooms at a healthcare provider, or various different kinds of governmental operations, literally maintaining streets or picking up trash and so forth. You can't take those systems that you use to manage those enterprise-wide processes and simply say, okay, SAP system, we bought you a subscription to ChatGPT, so now go start doing stuff smart. It doesn't work like that. You've got to rethink the way these systems work. And while generative AI has a role in doing that, other forms of artificial intelligence that have been evolving for decades and are actually, in many respects, precursors to generative AI, are in many cases equally important in terms of how you incorporate those into the systems and processes that you manage across the organization as a whole. And examples of some of these kinds of AI are various forms of advanced data analytics, such as predictive analytics, uh, machine learning, knowledge based expert systems, and there's a variety of others. And what these tools do is they enable you to restructure the way that your systems can work so that you can rethink the way that your processes do work. And that is not something that can be done overnight or very quickly. If you simply want to train somebody how to use ChatGPT or another generative AI tool very well, you can send them to a day-long training class, or maybe 3 or 4, 2 or 3 hour-long training sessions, and that can all be done within a week. And suddenly, in a very short period of time, that person is much more productive in producing higher quality output. And that's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with tactical AI. In fact, organizations should be doing it. But putting strategic AI in place is a much bigger task. That's something that takes many quarters or even years of work and planning to put into place. Organizations need to be thinking down the road. How can we reconceptualize the way that these processes work? And what changes do we need to make to our existing enterprise systems and software in order to take advantage of AI and related emerging technologies? And this is where other emerging technologies can play a critical role, and they become much more powerful when you integrate them with each other, especially AI. These other technologies include things like Internet of Things or sensor-based technologies. They include blockchain technologies for verifying the validity of data. They include technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality, together referred to sometimes as extended reality. They include for manufacturers and in many cases for other people who work with at least certain kinds of physical products, 3D printing technology. And all of these organizations need to be putting a digital transformation strategy in place that they're going to execute over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 or more years to incorporate these technologies into a redesign of not only the way their existing processes work, but even what their fundamental business model is for delivering value in whatever way they do to the markets that they serve. You need to be able to do continuous strategic planning. Strategic planning can no longer be a once a year exercise that a few people get together in a room for a few days or a week or so, talk about how they think things might change over the next year or so, tweak our existing business plans around the edges a little bit, sprinkle holy water on it and say, okay, now we have an updated strategic plan. We don't need to think about anything beyond the end of our noses for another year. Strategic planning has to be a constant, continuous process, just like some ancillary but critical processes as human resources, financial management, accounting. None of those are core to the functions of organizations and enterprises. Again, whether they're governmental agencies, healthcare providers, businesses of various types, or what have you. But they're all absolutely necessary and they have to be done on a continuous basis. Strategic planning will have to be done the same way. And it means that there's continuous scenario planning, there's continuous monitoring of the environment. Which technologies are emerging? How quickly? How is that likely to change our industry? How could it impact our business? How could our business or our organization leverage these technologies to provide more value? And one of the great things is that AI technologies, not only, but certainly including very importantly, generative AI technologies, can be used to help organizations do a better job of planning. You can go to a tool like ChatGPT or Claude, for instance, or Gemini or Perplexity, and you can say, imagine some various different scenarios in terms of external changes like climate change, geopolitical risks, and others might impact our industry and our business. And then imagine some ways that we might be able to respond that not only mitigate the potential negative effects, but allow us to turn those to beneficial effects in various different ways. And it can come up with those faster and quicker. You still need smart people thinking hard about how to deal with these issues, but you now have much more powerful tools to allow them to manage it, imagine a variety of possible future impacts, and then imagine potential appropriate changes, and to determine what are the specific trigger points we need to look for in our external environment that can help us say, we still have some of the same important strategic goals for our organization, but we now can or need to or should change our plans for how we're going to move forward in this way, because now there's a better or more effective or more desirable way of accomplishing this particular goal than what we had before.